What's going on, everybody? Christian Pedersen back with another episode of San Diego Prep Insider. Welcome to the first look at the 2025 high school football season. We are a little less than a month out from pads being on, a little more than a month out from first scrimmages as of us recording this, so I'm not going to waste too much time diving into this week 5 matchup between these. This is a general overview / an introductory course for any of you that might be new to the San Diego high school football this season. If you are, welcome. If you are a returner, thank you for checking back in. As always, I say to everyone, if you want to hit the subscribe button, it's much appreciated. If not, no worries. We'll be here all year to talk high school sports, not just football. We've got interviews, we've got podcasts, we've got guests, we've got all sorts of things. You can follow us on all the different platforms. Let's talk football, though, because recently I put out the top to bottom ranking system that the San Diego section is using now. This is going to be the second year of it, and I would say that the reception largely was negative, only because you hear so much more negativity posted online, as opposed to, I think the general consensus was that a lot of the playoffs worked really, really well. The new system being that they rank all the teams 1 through 1 whatever at the bottom, and then they select, top 4 go to open, next 4 this as opposed to a fixed division system as it had been previously used. Now, I think that last season, obviously, Saints going 0-10, dropping down from being a D1 team down to being in the D3 playoffs. Mount Miguel, SFC, a couple of squads that have been moving up really quickly from lower divisions to higher divisions. The Brawley RB, sure, 3 games, 6 games, 8 games, 10 games, maybe that were like, oh, whoa, that's crazy. But I largely think that it worked pretty well. And that, to me, was coming off of scheduling that was happening with the old mindset, because teams make deals a couple years out saying, oh, let's be home and home, or, oh, this is just your league. Like, sometimes you're not thinking, hey, we're going to start scheduling our football schedule 8 weeks before the season or something like that. So I think that as we go down this path, live with it a couple more years, that the system largely will be proven to be very good, very flexible, very fair in terms of 99%. And then there's always there's always bound to be a team that was like, if we had won by 4 more points, we'd be the 12 seed up here or the 1 seed down here, or there's always going to be teams on the borderline. That's inevitably just football, I feel like, or any playoff system inherently. No matter what, someone always has a case every year. So that all being said, let's take a look at where we're at, all top to bottom, and let's talk about some of the early conversations on plot lines. Apologies for the swipe being misbranded. Have not figured out how to get that changed. Lincoln, Mission Hills, Cathedral Catholic, LCC, all 4 last year's open division teams. It is right off the bat, Lincoln again retains the number 1 spot. And again, these rankings are not in any way, shape, or form a prediction of how this upcoming season is going to happen. And the bracket breakdown that we have for this graphic is right here on the left is considered what traditionally would be Division 1 in terms of schools, numbers wise and strength of schedule wise. Number 2 here is the second column is D2. You will see 3, 4, 5 AA, and 6 as we go on here. But those 4 open division schools up at the top, being not the 4 at the top now, but they are just 4 of the top 6, and having Carlsbad and Granite in there as well, I think is interesting. That is happening largely because Granite and Carlsbad played more games than them technically, so they won more than them, and it's just little math minutia where this is not any way, shape, and form fixing a team into anything. Any of these teams can go 0-10, drop way down, or have a 10-0 season, or anything in between. That's allegedly the flexibility of the system, but it is just interesting, I think, on its own merits, just numerically, to see that the system itself considers Granite Hills and Carlsbad to be that good, and it'll be interesting to play out. Obviously, you have 3 main conversations in San Diego high school football season: the open division conversation, the everybody else conversation, and then 5 AA and D6, both being fixed divisions, are again their own conversations, but open, and then everyone else. This year, I am curious about half the teams on this D1 segment here. I think that traditional logic points to Troy Hune Mission Hills being the competition for Lincoln. I think Lincoln's going to reload as they have every year. Aiden Jackson's going to run the ball. They're going to have some Curtis Jackson. What I look, I got teams, not names, all dialed in, but the run game is going to be the primary thing for Lincoln, from what I have seen. Defense is going to be good. The line's going to be good. Cathedral making a return visit to the Open Division under Brady Palmer and the team that they have seems likely. Mission Hills, like I said, Troy Kuhn, that's traditional logic. Then that fourth place conversation, LCC, pretty young team. Quinn Roth and company are going to return a lot of their skill position players. They are a year older, a year bigger, a year better. Going further past that, San Marcos and Crete Makahele, they have knocked on the door of success and flirted with it, just always played a tough schedule. Be very curious to see how they do. Mount Miguel is going to make a jump. Oceanside is going to make it. Like, both of those are championship contenders. The question is, are they guys capable of playing themselves up into Open? Do both of them, are those the two D1 favorites? Is this a this year thing? Is this a next year thing? Both, I said, are trending up, but I'm always curious with trending upward. Is that a linear line or is that more of an exponential line? So I think either one of those two schools are really poised for a deep playoff run, breakout year in this higher caliber of sense, and I'll be really curious to see. RB was building up nicely last year. I think that they are headed in the right direction. Same with Del Norte. Helix is a school that is always, to me, going to be a curiosity. They are one of the traditional blue bloods, and to have them out of that Open Division conversation has just been kind of interesting. Into the D2 ones, this is much more now into the two, like, not a ton of these teams are going to necessarily be able to jump numerically all the way up to being an Open per se. So some of these teams may jump into one, but it kind of becomes this, and the next 2 or 3 columns you're going to see are just an interesting mishmash of, like, who's going to benefit from some weird friendly fire in league versus who's going to go on a run versus who's going to start hot, who can't start hot, who's going to get hit by transfer periods and sit out, who's going to be a better team in the second half. There's just so many questions top to bottom here. Saints, obviously interesting because they go 0-10 last season and then win a CIF championship. What are they going to do this year? They have to play largely the same league schedule. Point Loma has been building up nicely. Scripps Ranch has had a couple of deep runs in the last 5 years, and not that there's rollover from year to year, but that, I think, mentality still remains, and the skill level is still high there at Scripps Ranch. Be curious to see what they've got. Madison's got a new head coach. University City has a great quarterback. Bishops is always playing above their punching weight in the terms of the playoffs that they wind up doing. Eastlake, can they retain some of their former glory? SFC obviously beat Bishops in league last year, so interesting questions top to bottom there. Let's move on then to D3 is now the left-hand column here, and D4 is the right-hand column. Valley Center, Grossmont Christian, Patrick Henry, all schools that have been in the conversation the last couple years, but I would love to see them benefiting from positioning-wise, having a chance to be in these let's slot them D2 through 4. Any of these schools, D2 through 4, struggle, succeed, go out, you test yourselves, and then benefit from just being slotted in the right spot at the end of the year to have a potential for a deep, successful run, because they've all been schools that have been working really hard. Not to say that any particular schools haven't been working hard, but there's been a couple where it's like, they put in some young guys. They suffered a couple of hard losses that, like, all right, you had like hypothetical hopes for them, but then they lose out to the bigger school and, not benefit, under that previous system. But now they can be pushed in whatever direction they need to numerically to find that sweet spot for the playoffs. Going further down this list, San Diego, I want to see what they've got. Obviously want to see what everybody's got. I want to see. Yeah, I will be interested. Army-Navy has loaded up progressively the last couple of years. Can they keep making a climb? Do they end up like Bishops, SFC, and Country Day, all sort of accidentally punching above their own weight continuously in the playoffs? Or do they find a sweet spot in the lower end of the divisions? Some of these other schools have had some change of quarterbacks and then How hard is graduation going to hit them? You don't know. I especially don't know. I don't think I ever am going to pretend to stand up here and be like, oh, I know perfect player analysis. So no, I don't want to even get into that until I have some of this on tape. But it just, on some of these schools, you look at it and you're like, oh, it'll be really interesting to see what's Hoover going to do with a new generation taking over, for example. They're still going to be a team that I'm interested in, but have no idea. I have some idea, but no real idea what the main identity of that offense is going to look like this year. So very, very curious about that one. And then you get down here to Division 5 is on the left, and then on the right is 5AA and 6. So this 5 category here that you're seeing is the bottom end of the list that started with Lincoln all the way down here to Coastal Academy at the bottom, is hypothetically the entire pool with which it'll all be ranked relative 1 to 100 and whatever. And then they will select all of the playoff divisions out of that number. Most likely what we're looking at here, these teams will be the same way that Lincoln and those guys most likely will not fall all the way down. These teams are probably mathematically unlikely to, even if they rip off a really good year, jump too high up. Maybe if somebody on this list, Valhalla rips off 9-1, goes crazy, 10-0. There's some of these that have a couple of strength of schedule type wins that could propel them up to a D3, but probably in here someone is the D5 champion, a couple of D4 contenders. Some schools that I really will be interested to follow here. I bring up Valhalla already, specifically Southwest San Diego. They've got a pretty good little core there that's reaching the upperclassmen ranks. Kearney and Classical Academy always have playmakers. How much success long-term can that be translated into in the Castle Park? Just we haven't heard from them in a couple of years, looking for some sort of return to playoff formatting. Over to D5 or 5AA, which is a small school capped. You have to declare you are in 5AA pre the season happening division. So it is largely there to harbor schools that maybe feel like they just can't compete in that other system, but don't want to just keep getting beat and lose and lose and lose. They want to generate some winning culture and then be able to hypothetically move back out of that. Or schools that are just never going to have more than a very scant amount of kids on their team, want to still play football, but just don't want to be subjected to having to pick up we got to play a 2,000 kid public school and get beat up and lose some of our players and just not be able to make it a whole season and have to fold. So 5AA in that ranks. I think that Claremont moving in there is a perfect move. I'll be very curious to see what they've got. I think that they've got a couple of pieces that I liked anyway last year. Moving into this year in 5AA could be very dangerous. O'Farrell, we saw them sustain winning last year. I'm assuming that's only going to continue to grow. Very, very much I think that the entire San Diego high school football community wants to see that grow. Not that we root for or against anybody. We want everybody to win all games always, but O'Farrell just as a program trending in that direction is fantastic for everybody. But that being said, Rock Academy, Maranatha Christian, Victory Christian, playmakers on all of them. Very curious to see. And then into the Division 6, I don't have an infinite amount of knowledge, but I will say that Borrego has been very good, has some players that I'm curious about. St. Joseph and Calvin Christian also definitely consistent contenders in that. Division 6 is 8-player football, so a smaller field, and therefore they do not play against anybody else outside of that group in the section. That is the whole totality of the section. They play non-section opponents, but that is everybody that they play against here in the San Diego section. So it's a smaller overall season. It's smaller, less football players, smaller section, and then they take less teams into the playoffs. So that is a look at everything we got going on San Diego high school football and just some early plot lines. Drop in the comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know players, teams that I need to be watching for. We'll talk to you guys again soon.